didn't think he knew about my experience with CRP. Exactly what he was saying. I went through the same thing. I finally told him, and I assume he did too. Just forget it. We baled hay off of it a while back, a week or two ago.
I mean, I know that there's a lot of CRP are being up for re-enrollment, and there's a real desire to put them back in production. And obviously, CRP was just to take some of the marginal land out of production and to support corn, especially prices, but corn and bean prices. I mean, have you guys faced that re-enrollment question? And I know they're often pretty high rents, almost above market from what I can tell.
You got an answer to play the thing, and you got to go through all this hocus pocus baloney, which, you know, the thing is missing is the thing called common sense. If that were applied, that would not be an issue.
And so you took your acres and put them into hay just to get the federal government out of it.
It was in good hay.
Yeah.
Like you said, it didn't need to be tore up and redone. We just left it like it was, and we baled it. We'll bale it again. We'll get more money out of the hay than we would have out of CRP. There's a mentality, though, that every time you go, or I should say every time, but many times you go into a government office, you're led to believe that they're so much smarter and they know more about your farm operation than you do. They've got to make the call and you go do what they tell you to do. There's not a farmer in this state with the land values the way they are that wants to see their farm eroded, polluted, or anything. I'll guarantee you that. We don't need the federal government telling us how we can do each little thing. And it seems to be the mentality today that they think they have to do that because we're not smart enough to know how to do it. I don't think we got to where we are leaning on that mentality.
Right, and I know a lot of farmers I talk to also, the thing they're most concerned about are those types of things, but it's also how do I pass this farm down to the next generation? I mean, I know at the first of the year we had a real risk of almost every farm in Iowa being subject to the estate tax, and confiscation by the government just for the fact that you passed on. And that's, I don't know, that gives me real concern. You've already paid taxes on the money. I don't know why the government thinks they get to take some more of it.
In the past few years, when the amount that you can pass is going up and down and up and down. They should just do away with inheritance tax.
I agree.
And
That's something I could support.
you mentioned education. It's too bad we can't just repeal that and get federal clear out of it. Turn it back to the states where it belongs.
Just think if we took those 5,000 bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. and put that money and resources into the classroom. Do you think the kids would learn better than if somebody is passing a rule out in Washington, D.C. that my kids need to take a certain bubble test in order to, so that they can measure, yeah, so that they can.
Buy our rest.
Right.
Do away with them. Add that money too.
Yeah.
Would you be in favor of either doing away with or reining in EPA and Department of Education then? I know a lot of Republicans in the past have mouthed those words, but we never see anything like that start to move in D.C.
Right. Right. Well, I was the co-chair for Governor Perry's presidential campaign, and one of the things that taught me is that you don't try to campaign on eliminating too many federal departments, because then you have to remember which ones you want to eliminate. So, and I know for him, the Department of Education and the EPA were top of the list, and I would share that. I mean, this is the thing that just, it comes back loud and clear when I go out and listen to Iowans, and that is that the federal government's too big, no one can manage it. The president and Congress really don't know where all this money's going or who it's going. It's just massive, and we need to pare it back. And we need to take a black pen and go through budget line by line and really make the tough choices. And so, yes, I would support a significant paring back of EPA. And you know how that happens when you eliminate a department in the federal government. Is it just as like I see the sticker for the Immigration Naturalization Service over on this tractor? Well, that's just the ICE now. They combined two, so they technically eliminated INS. The functionality stays the same, and that's what I'd be concerned about: is these Frankenstein departments. If you said we got to get rid of the EPA, just sort of just doing the old Washington shell game where they just move it to some other place and nobody ever got rid of it. The Department of Education certainly. I'd like to see those 5,000 bureaucrats and the money that supports them. I'd like to see that put into Iowa and other states' classrooms. I'd like to see the federal government out of education entirely. I love Senator Grassley. I think he works hard for us, and obviously he's very important for Iowa in the Senate. But the one of the areas I disagree with him on was No Child Left Behind. I just don't think that the federal takeover of education is a good thing. We need to push all those decisions down to the local level.
You can show the food stamp part had been separated from the farm program. Is it still that way, or are we going to get lucky enough to keep it that way?
Right. In the House, it was split, and they're going to have to figure out how to reconcile that. Farmers. Everyone thinks farmers get all these wonderful federal government subsidies, and really they've been pared back. Crop support, direct crop payments, those types of things, they've all been pared back. I mean, we're talking about crop insurance is the main thing now in the Farm Bill. And obviously, we in Iowa, we don't have the type of marginal lands that some other states, especially in the South, have. And so crop insurance for us is, we don't ever want a catastrophic crop failure, but we have pretty good land here and pretty good weather to grow a lot of farms. So we end up being a net payer on those crop insurance premiums. And so, I think we need to get that program put together. I think there's always been an assumption that we tie nutrition with agriculture, and sort of everybody can agree on that, and we're seeing where that's falling apart. But certainly we need to get that crop insurance piece passed. But
I didn't like having to share with the food stamp because it all went to the farmers as far as they were concerned. The farmers were spending that money, but instead it was going to food stamps.
Right.
So that this was working against us.
Right. I know that the House, for example, in addition to splitting it, they were able to find about $40 million in savings in the nutrition piece. And obviously that's where I want my elected officials, and the type of elected official I want to be is I'm finding the $40 million in savings. I'm getting rid of this $1 trillion deficit. I'll tell you a funny story. I was out in Washington, D.C., and a member of the news media, I was meeting with them, and I mentioned $1 trillion budget deficit, right? So we all hear in the news. And they said, well, actually, it's only $625 billion now, based on what the Congressional Budget Office says. I said, only in Washington, D.C. do we celebrate $625 billion deficit instead of $1 trillion. It's still, they're spending more than they're bringing in. And we have to grow this economy. That's where, and we have to adopt policies to grow this economy. And it's got to be common sense. It's got to be Iowa common sense like you all have here. Yeah, Mayor.